Hello, my name is Trina. I am the owner of the consultancy business called Carpavino here in British Columbia. I'm a licensed agent both in British Columbia and Alberta, and I love to help people find the magic in wine. I've taken a diploma in wine and a lot of training, and I love to share that knowledge with everyone else so that they too can find the magic in wine. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about that wine structure and how it relates to your palate, because what's an important piece is understanding your personal wine style is also understanding the structure of wine. And that will help you understand what you like in wine. And when you're standing in front of that long aisle of all of those bottles of wine in the liquor store, which I still find overwhelming, it will help you hone in where you should go to be able to buy the wine that will fit with your palate. Right now, there's about 1,500 different grapes that are under cultivation. And what that means is there's 1,500 grapes that are being cultivated or made into wine. There's about 10,000 different varieties, but those 10,000 varieties aren't being made into wine. So we have about 1,500. So if you want to try them all, you have to commit to try a different wine every other day for 5 years. Now, that could be problematic. But what might be more fun is to hone in on your personal wine style so that you can choose wines in your wheelhouse that you might like and then expand that journey a little bit farther out to other countries, regions, and stuff to just try and see what it's like. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to apply those two things together. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with talking about the structure of wine. And there's 5 things that you need to know for the structure of wine. And those structures include, and that includes acidity, sweetness, alcohol, body, and tannins. And we talked a lot about sweetness in a previous episode. And I think it's really important because oftentimes wine gets a bad rap because people think that it has a lot of sugar in it, where the majority of the wines that we're drinking doesn't have more sugar in it than a pop. It actually has less. And you can check out that episode. It's on my YouTube, and you will be able to, get a better understanding of that, which also will help you feel better about drinking wine, because this myth that all these wines are just chock full of sugar and those sort of things, that's not true. But what is true, you need to know what kinds of wines to buy so that you don't get that kind of wine style if that's not what you're looking for. And so now we're going to learn a little bit more about those different structures and how that relates to your palate. Most people think that you have to memorize grapes, regions, and vintages, but you don't. All you really need to know is yourself. And the first part I would like to start with is that we talk about varieties. And sometimes people get confused by that. They're like, what's a variety? A variety is just a grape. It's just a fancy word for grape. Pinot Noir, variety. Chardonnay, variety. There are 5 noble grapes, and we'll cover that in another lesson when we get more into wine. First, we're doing the structure so that you can understand your palate, and then we're going to layer on more information. We're going to layer on different kinds of wines, the noble grapes, and we're going to expand that so that if you follow along with me on the journey, you're going to get to try a whole bunch of different wines that you wouldn't have, and you're not going to be intimidated by it. So what you need to do is understand what makes your mouth light up. And for me, that's like, oh, this is so yummy, or I really am enjoying this. Oftentimes you have no idea why. And you're thinking, oh, like I really like this wine, but you don't know why. And that's why we're here today. We're going to teach you how to figure that out a little bit. And then wine becomes a journey. And instead of being intimidated in the aisles, you're going to feel confident, and it's going to be exciting because wine really is a lot of fun. For me, I had my aha bottle, and I always think about it because when people talk about the casino, and I don't go to the casino, but they talk about the first time they hit, and they're like, that was it. That was it. I was in. I was chasing that ever since. And for me, that's what my aha bottle of wine was. I had this bottle of wine, and over the time that I was drinking it, like an hour with my friend, it kept changing every time I went back to it. It kept evolving in the glass. And it really was the most amazing journey in wine that I've ever had. And I will admit, I've been chasing it ever since. And so I loved trying different wines and it from all over, weird grape varieties or ones that people just don't know that often, because I'm always excited to try something new. But it's not always fun to do that if you don't know what you like. And I understand my palate, and you do too, because you know what you like to eat, you know what you like to drink, and you're either a sweet, a salty, a savory, or a umami. And umami is like soy sauce and mushrooms and all of those sort of things. So let's decode that a little bit more and talk a little bit more about it so that we can tie the idea of discovering your palate to the structure of wine. Now, we're going to go into the mechanics a little bit and talk a little bit about the science and the architecture of it. And that's again about the acidity, the tannins, the alcohol, the sweetness in the body. But the first thing that I want to do is teach you a smelling trick, because it's not really a trick, it's more about training. And in the last episode, I shared that I had this smelling kit that helps me with my sense. And the reason for that is because the majority of wine taste actually comes from smell. Spoiler alert. So the stronger that your smell sense gets, the better that you get at being able to taste and identify different flavors and things in wine. And so I kind of attach those to fun personalities. And I often do this parlor game where I can tell you what you probably will like in wine based on a few questions, usually less than 5. And so, for example, I was out for dinner with some friends and they really enjoy wine. And the gentleman says, "Oh, I usually always get this." And I think it was Chardonnay. He says, "I always order Chardonnay. I really like Chardonnay." Yeah. And I don't blame him. You know, you like it. It's your go-to. You don't want to order something you hate and then say, that was a waste, because it's not a fun experience. So with a few questions like, what is your morning drink? Do you like sweet or salty, savory? What's your go-to? A few questions, then I kind of get the sense of what their go-to wines are and what they kind of like. And I can decode their palate based on that. And you can do the same thing. So I was able to determine that he liked particular things in the Chardonnay, and we ordered an Arnaz. He tried it. He's like, "Oh, wow, this is really good." And he was a bit shocked because he would have never chosen that on the menu. But because I understood his palate and I understand wine and regions a little bit, he was able to have something that he really enjoyed. So let's practice smelling. And how you do that is, do you know the difference between a lemon peel and lemon juice? And what you're going to do is you're going to take a lemon and you're going to take some of the juice and you're going to smell the juice. And then you're going to take some of the lemon skin and I want you to twist it like you would be putting it into a cocktail. And that's going to release some of the aromas. And then I want you to smell that. And what are you going to find? I think you're going to find that even though it's the same fruit, exactly the same fruit, like the outside and the inside, that it tastes, that it smells different. And it's really interesting to do that. So when you swirl the wine, like the snobby people do, I'm sure it seems that way, but really you're just trying to get oxygen into the wine to release the aroma compounds. And so that's like the flavors and the scents. That's how your body picks it up. So every wine has 5 structural elements. We've already talked about those, and learning to recognize those is like a blueprint, and then it's not a guessing game. So let's talk a little bit about each one. I went a lot into sweetness last time in the last episode, and that's because people often give wine a bad rap about having a lot of sugar. The majority of wines have less sugar than a pop. And if you like sweet wines, that's great, but you shouldn't be afraid of wine thinking that it has a bunch of sugar in it, when depending on the style that you drink, it probably has much less than a pop or a juice that you're drinking. So sweetness is how much sugar is left in the wine after the wine production has completed. So at the end, you got a wine. How much is left in there is what is the sugar in the wine, and that's called residual sugar. So you think like a dry champagne, almost no sugar left in it. You can't even barely taste it, all the way up to a sweet Moscato. And that sweet Moscato has more wine in it. And knowing where you like your sweetness will help define the wines that you're going to like, and it'll make it a lot easier. So sweetness is an important one. And you can feel the sweetness on the tip of your tongue. That's your body recognizing sugar. The next one is acidity, and that makes your mouth water. It's what gives wine that crisp, zesty feel. It's the difference between biting into a Granny Smith apple and makes your mouth water and your cheeks pucker, versus a melon. And a melon is sweet and you don't get that puckering. So high acid wines, a Sauvignon Blanc, a Riesling; low acid wines, a Viognier or a Grenache. And Viognier is a really beautiful white wine. And I find that it's a real crowd pleaser and never offends anyone. And it might be something that many people haven't tried before. So it's an easy crowd pleaser if you're looking for something. And Grenache is also the same way. Oftentimes people stay with their tried and true, and that there's no problem with that. And it's usually a Cabernet Sauvignon, a Merlot, a Malbec. For whites, it's usually Chardonnay, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Grigio. But There's a world of wine out there. There's 1,500 different varieties that you can try. So let's have fun with it. So sip lemon water and notice the rush of saliva in your mouth. That's the acidity in action. Next is tannins, and tannins mostly in red wines, and it's what creates that dry puckering feeling like an oversteeped tea. And that's really the best way to describe it, because I don't know how else. It's like leave your tea bag in water too long, and it's like you go to drink and you're like, oh, I left it in there too long. That taste is kind of what tannins are like. And you can tell how much tannins are in red wines. Particularly, you can take a glass of red wine, you can swirl it around your mouth, and then you take your tongue and you like a windshield wiper across the top. And if it's hard to move across and it kind of gets stuck along the way, it's called grippy. That's usually a sign of tannins. And tannin comes from where? The grape seeds, the grape skin, and sometimes oak aging. Sometimes producers will do what's called whole pressing, and that's when they take the whole cluster of grapes that you would see on a vine and they press it. And sometimes the stems and the seeds are what give some tannins to the wine. So higher tannins, you're going to think of more grip, more structure, and bitterness. For example, like a Cabernet Sauvignon, which would be higher in tannins typically, or a Pinot Noir, which is typically lower in tannins. Next is alcohol, and alcohol is actually really important. You'll feel this as a warming sensation in your chest or cheeks. For me, I take a sip of wine and I know how far does it make me warm down my chest. The farther it goes down that it makes it warm, then I know that how much more alcohol. Lower down, higher alcohol. That's what works for me, and it worked really well when I was doing blind taste testing, because we need to identify the exact percentage of, like, is it low, medium, or high within those brackets. And for me, I needed to really pay attention to my body so that I could identify them. Next, and the other thing that's really important to know is that the higher alcohol gives wine more body and sometimes a sense of more sweetness. So last time we talked about how fruit can make it seem sweet instead of the sugar. This time we're also talking about how alcohol can sometimes make a sense of sweetness. The next thing is body. And if you think of body, the best way to describe it is if you think of milk. So 2% would be light body, medium body would be 2%, and full body would be like whole milk or cream. And when you're thinking of a wine, is it like skim milk in your mouth? Is it like 2%, or is it like whole milk? And why is that important? Because that also tells you what you like in your wine. If you like light-bodied wines, if you like medium body, or if you like full body. And for me, all of those things go together. I like espresso, I like cream, I like bitter. And for me, that translates directly into the type of wines that I like. I also like earthy, I like umami. That, put those all together, what do you get? You get a Pinot Noir. And for me, those earthy Pinot Noirs that kind of taste like forest floor and are bold and beautiful, that's my wheelhouse. Now, we've talked before about the lemon and smelling the skin versus the juice. And you'll find that if you practice with that, and then you practice with things that are in your kitchen, what I want you to do is start training your sense of scent and just really being able to identify it. And so smelling things like cut herbs versus dried herbs, which actually smell different, spices, coffee grounds, jam, peppercorns. And then this is the trick. You need to name that thing without using the word. So it's not lemon, maybe it's zippy, tangy, astringent. And you need to find 3 words that describe that scent without using the item in it. And that helps you build your internal library, which will make you an intuitive taster. And that's where you want to be. You want to be an intuitive taster. You'll know right away, oh yeah, this has got lots of, dried herbs in it or whatever. And you'll find those in the wines. And the more you practice with your nose, the more you're going to be able to pick those up in your wines. The other thing you can try is you can try plugging your nose and taking a sip of your wine. And if you do that, and then release, of course, then take a sip without plugging your nose, you're going to notice a difference. When you plug your nose, it's going to be a lot flatter. And when you don't plug your nose, that wine is going to be a lot more complex, and it's just the complexity will just rush in. And so that's also an interesting thing to try. Now let's talk a little bit about our palate personalities. I love doing this. So this for me is like some of the questions that I ask when I'm trying to determine what someone's personal wine profile is. And I usually start with what is your breakfast drink? So do you like espresso? Do you like orange juice? Do you like tea? Do you just have water? That gives me a clue which way I'm going to go. And for me, I spoke about it before, it's espresso. Now, if you like orange juice, for example, or grapefruit juice would be a great example. Grapefruit juice unsweetened. Oh, that tells me you love acid. You love really high acid and you like tangy. Like I find grapefruit tangy and fruity at the same time. And those things all together really make a nice wine. And if you like that, you usually like high acid wines, like a Sauvignon Blanc is one, an Albarino, a dry Riesling. All of those would be your jam. If you like juicy, plushy, friendly wines, you're like, but do I? Usually in the morning you would like fruit, or maybe you just have fruit and yogurt. Whatever that thing is in the morning that's very fruit-like, it gives you juicy, fruity, lots of flavor. Fruit forward is what they refer to it in the wine. Then your wines often want to be like a berry salad with a splash of spice. And so you can try a Pinot Noir, a Gamay, a Grenache. Gamay is a great wine for that, really juicy, plush. Grenache also. Pinot Noir, you need to have a good understanding of where it's being produced because it's produced in different ways. And you'll either get really lots of forest floor or you'll get lighter, for more fruit forward. And that just depends on the winemaker's preference. The next one is what I refer to as the bitter bold, and they love structure, power, edge, high tannins like red Cabernet Sauvignon, a Barolo, a Syrah, all within my wheelhouse. I like black coffee. I don't mind a challenge. I'm not afraid to drink a wine that bites back. And so that's definitely one of my wheelhouses. The other one is the sweet seeker, as I like to refer to it. You love a touch of sweetness. And that means that you would like a demi-sec champagne versus a brut champagne, because demi-sec has some sugar in it. And an off-dry Gewürztraminer is also really in your wheelhouse. And you might have a chai latte. You might have a coffee with lots of cream and sugar. If you like coffee, lots of cream, lots of sugar, usually that tells me that you would like a Chardonnay that's buttery, that's really has a lot of body. And then the last one is what's referred to as the earthy sage. And that's you lean towards those savory complex wines like a Burgundy, a Rioja, or an aged Barolo. And don't worry if all of these wine words are just wine words to you right now. We are going to go over different kinds of wines and I'm going to keep adding them to episodes coming up. And if you like what you're learning so far, head over to my website and sign up. Everyone who signs up for the newsletter, I can send out a palette map where you can kind of track what you like or not to help decode your palate. You can get a taste passport if you're interested in that, and you can follow along when we get to those lessons. And we're going to go through in those upcoming episodes, we're going to go through the 5 noble grapes, and you're going to be able to follow along with your passport. So you can get those on my website. It's www.carpavino.com. Now, back to the earthy sage. You smell forest floor and mushrooms and say, oh yeah, please, that's right in your wheelhouse. So you have green tea or bone broth in the morning. Those are usually an indication that you like savory things or umami. And those all go really well with those things that we just talked about in those wines. So that's the beauty of it. Taste isn't a test. It's a mirror. And if you think about that, that's what you should be looking for in your wine. And that's why I really hate it when people say, oh, well, what kind of wine do you like? And if you don't know, it can be quite intimidating. But now you can use language and you can use it in the language in the structure of wine, and that will really help you out. So for example, you can say, oh, I really like an acidic wine. And you know that because of what you typically have in your day-to-day life. Or you could say, I really love sweet wines. And even if you don't know what to order, just knowing that structure means you can ask others, oh, is this like a sweet wine, or would you consider it dry? Would you consider it high in acid or not? Does it have a lot of tannins? Is it really earthy? Some people really hate earthy wines. I love them, but others hate them. But it gives you a simple way to talk about wine and you don't have to feel so intimidated. So, what I would like you to do is the next time you drink 2 or 3 different wines over the next few weeks or months or years or whatever it is, I want you to walk through them with that thought in mind, that structure in mind, those 5 things: the acidity, the sweetness, and then buy one that you wouldn't normally buy. And if you don't want to just risk it and just go buy something blind out there, you can ask the store clerk and they will help you pick something in your wheelhouse. And now you know how to ask for it. So you can say, I like a sweet wine. I like it to have a lot of body. I like it creamy, or vice versa. And they will help pick something out. And you want to pick something out from a different country that you've tried before and a different variety that you've tried before. So don't stick to the same country. Don't stick to the same variety. You can do that later when we're comparing different wines, and so that you can try like cool climate to warm climate. We can do some of those things later, but for now, I just want you to try something different. And then I also want you to come back and leave some comments. And so if you can leave comments about how it went, or what you liked or you didn't like, or what you've learned about your palate, that would be great. Those who leave comments, I'm going to shout out to them next time, and you're going to help others learn. Now, let's talk a little bit about building your personal palette. And when you're building your personal palette, the thing that I want you to do is think about those 5 structures. And then those things actually relate to what is referred to a wine. Well, I don't know if it's called a wine map, or what's the easiest way, your flavor aroma wheel. So here you'll see this is a flavor aroma wheel. And in this flavor aroma wheel, it has different sections. It has like herbaceous, it has fruit, it has chemical, it has woody, it has earth. And if you email me, I can send out a copy of this so that you can follow along. But really, I just go through and I tick all of the things that I like and I don't like. And that will give you a real sense. It'll give you a map of where you like to drink your wine. So that's all for today. I want to thank you for coming by. I hope you come by next time. And remember, it's www.carpavino.com. I love wine and I want to share the magic with you.